Working from home safely and securely. This is almost as personal as it is business. We're not securing devices, we're securing data. So I have a MacBook here. That's what I'm presenting on. Probably one of the best MacBooks ever made, but the value of that MacBook does not even compare to the value of the data that's on that MacBook. Your iPhone, I realize you paid $800 for, a new iPhone. That's expensive, but what's on that iPhone is more valuable than the iPhone itself. So let's kind of keep that in mind as we kind of go through things. So if you're working at the dining room table or, wherever that is, you have to keep in mind what's in your workspace. So, what's on the desk, what's on the table, what type of papers, the computer. If you have an office, lock it. So my office is in the basement, but I have two teenage boys. They're 15 and 17, and they have friends that come over. I lock my office. Nobody's allowed in my office, and that's rule number one. Secure printing. Secure printing is something that you definitely have to consider because we don't have secure printing in the offices now because we're not in offices. Backing up your data. If you're storing it on your local drive, it's not being backed up. If you were to lose that hard drive for some reason, whatever, you spill coffee or Coke or whatever on it, you may lose that. Please store all of your working documents in the cloud, not on your device, just in case something were to happen. Multi-factor authentication. So this is not just for your company, this is for you. So your company has probably set up multi-factor authentication, which means you put in a user, you put in a password, and then they send you a code back that, it's a 6-digit code that you have to enter to actually get onto the system. That is best practice. Protecting your media. This is mainly USB devices. Encrypt, encrypt, encrypt. I can't say that enough. So laptops, your laptop should be encrypted with BitLocker. Your IT department should be doing that. If you run a Mac by chance, you have File Vault. Just be sure everything is encrypted, including removable media. This is where a lot of the problems happen. We all have USB devices that are in our backpacks or our briefcases or whatever that is. Be sure that it's encrypted. Phones. The good news now is that Android or iOS, once you set that password, it is encrypted. So I can tell you that if your laptop is encrypted, whether it's Windows or if it's Apple, I cannot get into it without a key. Backups. Be sure that you have backups of your media. Passwords. So, passwords seem to be very simple, but at the same time, let me tell you how integral they are to cybersecurity. So, passwords are the keys of the kingdom. If I can get your password, I am you, which means I can log into the VPN, I can log into portals, depending on MFA, and I can do things on behalf of you, and it looks like that you did it. The password has to be strong and changed often. So uppercase, lowercase, special characters. What I'm really a big fan of is not just passwords, but passphrases that are long. 16, 18, it's a sentence, something like that. Like, I don't like my cat Asher. So yeah, I have a cat named Asher and I don't like the cat. I don't like my cat named Asher, but I'll change I with a 1 or A with a 4. It just makes it much more complex. And we have actually AWS engines. We have like 4 or 5 different types of devices that we use to crack passwords. If it's 16 or 18 characters and has upper and lower case, it takes like weeks, if not months, to get that password. Another thing, please do not reuse passwords across different sites. This is common. I realize it's easy. This is where password managers really come into play to help you keep something unique across everything. When you take your devices to your home network, your IT support cannot protect your home network. I'm not saying you have to take on some of this responsibility, but understand that your IT support cannot. If you have a home router, change that default password. Secure your webcam. When you set up a webcam, you have to understand that sometimes it opens up a port to the internet to where people can connect to it without you knowing. Just ensure a minimum of WPA security, and you'll see that in the setup. Please do not do WEP. WEP is not wired encryption protocol, it's wired equivalency protocol. So I could probably get a 9-year-old that can come over and crack into a WEP network. Just be sure that you're set up for WPA. Preference would actually be WPA 2. Don't share Wi-Fi passwords with others. I think I mentioned I've got two boys, they're 15 and 17. They've got some shady friends. I don't want them on my network. So most, wireless routers now will allow you to configure a guest network. So when someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Mr. Bill, can I have the, you know, wireless password?" I'm like, "Not mine. I'll give you the guest network password." And here it is. You can configure a guest network to where they cannot access the internal network. Thoughts on wired connections? I've built 3 houses, I think, over the past 10 years, and I would put wired connections outside for some reason. I have no idea. I guess I thought I was going to sit on the porch, but I never hooked them up to the actual router. Understand that that may also be somewhat of a vulnerability. If you have wired connections that I consider to be hot and part of your internal connections. OpenDNS, from a home perspective, I cannot recommend this enough. So with my boys, there's obviously there's a lot of types of information that I don't want getting into my house, whether it's pornography or gambling or building bombs. I don't think my boys would build bombs, but OpenDNS is a free tool. It's now owned by Cisco. You have to do a little bit of geek stuff on your router to change, how it's going to route the traffic, but I strongly recommend OpenDNS to kind of keep some of that stuff out, and also a lot of the malware. It'll do the first level of malware inspections to say, all right, well, this is bad. I'm not going to allow it in. So I've been using it for like 8 or 9 years. I cannot recommend it enough. So the virtual private network, this is much more on the work side of things. But what this is, it's a secure network tunnel to your office. So when you connect to that VPN, and it's going to be multi-factored, once you do that, it's almost like you're sitting in the same network as your office. Everything else that you have at home is not going to be available to you. So you cannot connect to anything else when you're connected to the VPN. If you're at Starbucks or wherever you like to have your coffee, any time that you're doing anything, you should connect to the VPN. If you're sitting at a Starbucks and you're just using their open Wi-Fi, we can get a lot of information from that. So when you're at Starbucks, connect to your company's VPN or another VPN, because that creates that encrypted tunnel that protects you. So let's talk about protecting your computer. So local firewalls, I realize this may be a bit of a technical topic, but you can enable local firewalls, which would protect you from the other devices that may be on your home network. Windows 10 has that built in. Patching. Patches were easy to send out when everyone's on the same network. Now it's much more difficult. So most of you have probably seen the pop-up that says, "Hey, we're going to install and apply these patches this evening. Can we do this?" Please do that, because Microsoft sends out patches almost monthly, and then Apple sends them out whenever they feel necessary. Same thing with antivirus and anti-malware updates. When you were going to the office every day, they could push those updates to your devices. It's much more difficult. So if you get a request to do an antivirus update or anti-malware update, please do that. Here's a big one, and I've had to learn this on the hard way. Cover your camera when it's not in use. We're all doing video calls now, and on a given day, I may use 5 different collaboration platforms, and on a Mac, I've got a little green light that tells me when it's on, but sometimes I don't know who controls my camera or my mic, at the end of the day. So there's a couple of times that I realized I left my camera on. I didn't leave that meeting. And so keep that in mind. You've got little sliders, you've got tape, you can do something like that, but cover your camera. Be sure you do that, and mute your mic, because, personal stuff happens in houses that other people don't need to know about. Lock in your workstation, which to me is a really big thing, especially if you're in an open space when you're working, like a dining room table or an attic where there's other people there. When you get up and leave, if you're going to go take a walk or take a run, please do that. Lock your workstation. Be sure that no one can sit down at your workstation and kind of see what's going on. Like I said, I've got boys, they're curious. I've caught one of mine sitting at my workstation at my desk. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I don't know. I'm just looking around." I'm like, "Don't do that." So lock your workstation every time you leave your desk. So phishing is obviously It's an opportunity for someone to send an email to kind of trick you to do things. So let's be really vigilant about phishing, not just for your company, but yourself personally, especially right now. Tax time. Tax time is a big time, and then normally Memorial Day is a big time. Every big holiday is a really big opportunity for phishing attacks. So ransomware is probably the number one cybersecurity threat over the past couple of years, in my opinion. I've been following these since 2014, and they're not evolving, they're just getting more expensive. So here's an example of one. And again, I'm here in Knoxville. You can see this is from 2016. This email went to 9 of my clients in Knoxville. Same email from Courtney Kramer. Hey, please find the fixed invoice attached. Okay, so if you don't work in accounting, why would you click on that? So if you're an IT person, why would you do that? You'd be amazed how many people will click on that link, even though it's an RTF. That's not even a docx. That's not even a Word document, which means it's going to be layered with a lot of, malware or something. So what happens with ransomware, and it's evolved. So I do a presentation on 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. We're probably on like 3.5 now. The first thing it does on every device, Windows device, you have backups of your device on your laptop, and they're called volume shadow copies. The first thing the ransomware does, because it's smart, it deletes those. Then it starts encrypting the local user files, your My Documents, the folder structures. When you're on your company's network, it'll reach out and encrypt the network shares. So your home directory, your shared drives, those types of things. That is not as big of an issue unless you're connected to the VPN when you're infected. It can also encrypt other computers. This is where the home network comes into play. So if you're not connected to the VPN, it's going to, if you've got other Windows devices on your network and you don't have firewalls turned on, it's going to encrypt those also. If you're connected to the VPN, it's going to spread throughout your network, your company network. Any attached removable media, USB devices, external storage, those types of things, it's going to encrypt that also. Even if you've encrypted it, like we discussed before, it's going to encrypt it again to where you still can't access it. And it could also impact cloud storage. And what I'm saying by cloud storage, how it can impact that is it's on your device. And if you're using OneDrive or Dropbox or, Box or whatever that is, those versions up there are not going to be directly impacted by ransomware. But you realize when you save files to your local device, it syncs up to those platforms. So over time, yes, it could actually sync encrypted files to those storages, and you would lose that. They're getting better. All right, so in summary, the target has changed. What I'm saying here is that the attackers they're not looking at company networks exclusively. They're looking at users. We don't know what IT is going to be supporting and what we're responsible for. So they're doing the best that they can, especially with the VPNs and the technologies, and be vigilant. If it seems to be good to be true, it is for the most part. And standard cyber hygiene. And I realize that none of you signed up to do this. Patching, antivirus updates, anti-malware updates, those types of things. And if you need help with that, call the IT department and say, I want to be sure that my system's going to be patched. What do I need to do? And the last one is just embrace it, because there's always going to be somewhat of a hybrid work environment. All of these things that we've discussed are things that you need to keep in mind from now on, whether it's your work computer or whether it's your home computer. So with that, I really appreciate everyone's time and attention. If you want to send any questions via email, I'll be more than glad to address those also.